Before history carved its name into stone, before empires rose and fell, there was only silence. But not an empty silence, a sacred one. The kind that breathes through ancient ruins, that carries messages in the wind, and that whispers of something once revered and now lost. Deep within that silence echoes a name never spoken aloud, the Missing Templar sanctuary swallowed by time, guarded by men bound by oath and fire. They were not just warriors. They were sentinels, keepers of a mystery so profound, its very existence was denied. The world remembers them as the Knights Templar, the sword of Christendom, the guardians of the Holy Land. But beneath the polished legend lies a darker, more elusive tale, one of shadows, of forbidden knowledge, and of a temple that vanished without leaving stone or ash behind. It was said to be unlike any structure ever built, not vast, but sacred, hidden deep in an unmarked land, a place where the old gods whispered and forgotten symbols burned in gold across obsidian walls. A temple not of worship, but of power, not to be visited, only protected. And then it disappeared. No collapse, no ruins, no trace, just a void in the world, a silence so absolute it became a myth. Some say it never existed, that it was merely an allegory passed between initiates of the order. Others believe it was buried, deliberately sealed away beneath centuries of secrecy, beneath cathedrals, deserts, or forest floors. A holy vault for a truth too dangerous for the world to bear. What was hidden there? A relic, a scripture, a force beyond comprehension? Even the Vatican, with all its reach, never spoke of it or chose not to. But fragments remained. A symbol etched in the margin of a dying monk's manuscript. A door carved in stone beneath a ruined abbey in southern France. A map with no coordinates, only a black circle where the world forgets to look. For those who dare to follow these signs, the journey begins not in archives or excavations, but in echoes. The echo of a vow taken in silence. The echo of footsteps through cold stone corridors. The echo of a question unanswered for 700 years. Maybe the temple was never a place. Maybe it was a threshold between what was once known and what must remain forgotten. And if you listen closely, even now, you might hear it, the faint hum beneath the static of time, the breath of the sacred silence. If this story is moving you, comment below where you're watching from and what time it is there. They did not begin as legends. They began as men, knights, brothers, pilgrims in armor, walking through blood and dust under the scorching sun of the Holy Land. In the aftermath of the First Crusade, around the year 1119, a small group of warrior monks was founded in Jerusalem. Their mission? To protect Christian pilgrims on the dangerous roads between Europe and the sacred city. They were few, only 9 at the start, and yet, what they would become was far greater than any kingdom they had sworn to defend. The poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. That was their name. But the world would come to know them by a simpler, more powerful title, the Knights Templar. They took their vows in the ruins of Solomon's temple, or what remained of it. That alone birthed centuries of fascination. For the temple they chose as their spiritual home was no ordinary ruin. It was a place already steeped in legend, believed to have held the Ark of the Covenant, the voice of God, the seat of sacred power. Whether by fate or design, their choice of headquarters placed them directly atop a myth. And some say, beneath it. Their rise was meteoric. Within decades, they were no longer humble guardians of the road. They became a military, political, and financial power stretching across continents. Nobles donated vast lands. Kings sought their counsel. Even the Pope placed them above all earthly laws. The Templars answered only to God and to themselves. But where there is unchecked power, there are shadows. Their influence grew opaque. They built fortified commanderies across Europe and the Levant. They moved wealth between nations, creating what some historians call the world's first international banking system. But beneath these visible accomplishments, stories began to spread. Whispers of rituals performed in secrecy, of relics hidden from the eyes of the church, of objects unearthed beneath the Temple Mount, objects never meant to be found. What did they find beneath Jerusalem? To this day, no one knows for certain. Some say ancient scrolls written in a forgotten tongue. Others speak of a mysterious artifact, a stone, a vessel, a light, something that changed the course of their mission, and perhaps of human history itself. Their initiation rites became the stuff of legend and suspicion, not merely ceremonies of brotherhood, but acts of sacred binding. Their vows were sealed not just with prayers, but with symbols, runes no scholar could decipher, gestures no outsider could witness. Some chronicles claim they renounced Christ and spat upon the cross charges likely fabricated, but lingering, persistent. Why? Because even lies are born from fear, and what the world feared most was what the Templars might have become: keepers of heresy, guardians of forbidden truth, custodians of a secret not even Rome could contain. By the mid-13th century, they had wealth rivaling kings. Their commanderies were cities within cities. Their archives locked, encrypted, lost to time were said to contain blueprints of an ancient world. But no one could confirm it, because those who tried to look deeper found doors that would not open. And then, something shifted. From within their own ranks, silence deepened. Older members disappeared into exile. Documents vanished from archives. A change in the air, as if they knew something was coming. Something final. The legend of the temple, the missing temple, begins here. A sudden absence in their records. A pilgrimage without return. A fortress never mapped. A ceremony only mentioned once in a burned letter from a Grand Master to an unknown recipient. And a name erased. A name no one has been able to recover. This is the first true fracture in the timeline. The first undeniable gap. And where there is a gap in the record, there is a story buried. What were they hiding? Some believe it was knowledge. A lost gospel. A prophecy written in symbols. Others claim it was something tangible, a device, a relic of the ancient world. Something not divine, but older than divinity itself. Whatever it was, it had to be hidden. Not just from kings and priests, but from humanity. Because some truths, once known, can never be undone. And so, the Templars began to vanish not from the world, but into it. Dispersing, disguising, hiding. Not all of them. Just those who knew. The inner circle. The guardians. They stopped writing, stopped gathering, stopped being knights, and became echoes. Echoes that would one day lead those brave enough to listen. Back to the beginning. It began with a line. Just a single, uneven stroke across an ancient manuscript. Nothing more than a faint curve, almost invisible to the eye, etched into the margins of a 13th century codex now housed in an underground archive beneath a ruined abbey in Languedoc. To the untrained observer, it meant nothing. To the initiated, it was the beginning of a map not of places, but of meaning. Over centuries, dozens of such markings, symbols, and encrypted phrases have surfaced in obscure Templar documents. Scattered across Europe, in vaults, tombs, hidden chapels, and forgotten libraries, fragments of a path seem to emerge. Not a direct route, but a cartography of myth, a trail woven in ritual, geometry, and silence. Those who've attempted to assemble it call it the veiled map. It is not made of ink and paper. It is made of memory, stone, and intention. Many believe it leads to the lost temple, the place never recorded in Templar registers, never referenced openly in council decrees, but echoed again and again through symbols. The double cross, the 8-point star, the serpent swallowing its tail, the empty throne. But the key to decoding this trail lies not only in what is drawn, but in what is missing. In 1302, 3 years before the Order's downfall began, a scroll surfaced in the hands of a Flemish monk named Bernardus. Written in Latin, Aramaic, and a strange, Proto-Celtic dialect, the scroll recounts a final sanctum to be guarded beyond the gates of Rome and beneath the eye of the dying star. For centuries, this phrase baffled scholars. But some now believe the eye of the dying star refers to a specific astronomical alignment, one that occurs only once every 700 years. That alignment happened in October of 2025. A coincidence? Or a summons? Bernardus' scroll also includes what researchers refer to as the silent prophecy, a passage so deliberately fragmented that it resists translation. It speaks of a circle unbroken beneath the seventh veil, and a vault of breath where stone becomes light. More poetry than instruction. But like all myths, it hides more in what it implies than what it states. What was this vault? Why did it require prophecy to find it? There are also accounts of a group of Templars who disappeared entirely from the Order's known geography, neither executed during the purge of 1307, nor absorbed into rival factions. They were last seen heading toward the southern Pyrenees carrying nothing but a chest sealed with 7 iron locks. In the 17th century, a French cartographer named Lucien d'Orleans claimed to have discovered one of those locks embedded in the foundation of a ruined fortress near Andorra. The lock was fused into the stone, bearing the mark of a double-headed phoenix. D'Orleans went missing 6 weeks after publishing his sketches. His notes ended mid-sentence. All that remains is a fragment. The chamber sings when light touches its heart. Beneath, something pulses, waiting. The coded prophecy extends further. In multiple locations across France, Spain, and Portugal, Templar commanderies appear to have been designed according to a secret geometric pattern, one that forms a constellation when mapped. That constellation, curiously, does not match any known star formation in the sky, but when overlaid on topographic maps, it points to a region long considered inaccessible, a dead zone between tectonic plates, covered by dense forest, riddled with sinkholes and underground caverns. Some call this area the mouth of the silence, and in its heart a depression in the earth, circular, rimmed with stone lies what might once have been the foundation of a structure, now erased. Here, researchers have found stones that do not match the geology of the region. Stones cut with unnatural precision, marked by a symbol rarely found outside of Templar graves, the cross within the circle, enclosed in a serpent. The oldest symbol of rebirth, eternity, and concealment. But what does it conceal? Modern attempts to excavate the site have been repeatedly blocked either by landslides, legal restrictions, or sudden withdrawal of funding. A few daring independent teams have ventured in with drones and sensors, only to report technical malfunctions, corrupted data, or bizarre anomalies, readings of impossible depth, temperature shifts, and in one case recorded whispers in an unknown tongue. Whispers. Underground. The map may be fractured, the prophecy fragmented, but the direction is clear. The temple was never destroyed. It was buried intentionally, veiled beneath layers of time, fear, and myth. And those who built it wanted it that way, because what they guarded was never meant for this world as it is. There are those who believe the temple holds a relic of divine origin, not a weapon, not an object, but a resonance, a frequency, something older than scripture, older than language, a truth that breaks minds not because it is evil, but because it is too much. The prophecy hints at a moment to return, not of an object, but of awareness, when the vault will open, when silence will break. Perhaps that moment has already begun. If you're enjoying this story, interact with us. This is the Epic Legends channel, where the greatest legends come to life. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. This really helps the video reach other people who love mythology and epic stories. And don't forget to comment on what you've thought so far. It was a Friday, the 13th of October, 1307. At dawn, across the Kingdom of France, thousands of royal soldiers moved in silence. Orders sealed by King Philip IV were opened only hours before the operation began. What followed was not a battle, not a war, but an erasure. The Knights Templar were to be arrested, interrogated, dismantled. The reason given? Heresy, idolatry, blasphemy. The truth? Something far more elusive. Historians still argue the motives. Some say King Philip was bankrupt and sought to seize the Templars' vast wealth. Others point to political tension between the French crown and the papacy. But beneath the financial and religious justifications lies something deeper: fear. Not fear of what the Templars were, but of what they held or what they knew. Within hours, the order was crippled. Grand Master Jacques de Molay and his senior knights were chained, paraded, and later burned. Under torture, some confessed to crimes that would haunt the world's imagination for centuries. Spitting on the cross, secret rites, worship of a mysterious head, and allegiance to an inner doctrine unrecognized by Rome. Were these confessions true? Were they fabrications born of pain and fire? Or were they warnings, encoded in suffering? But amidst the purge, something else happened, something most records ignore. An entire branch of the order vanished. While France burned, while commanderies were seized, and brothers interrogated, a fleet of Templar ships stationed at La Rochelle disappeared into the fog. Not one vessel was recovered. Not one knight was seen again. They sailed into myth. Where did they go? Legends abound. Some say they fled to Scotland, others to Portugal or the New World. But a few rare texts suggest something stranger, that they sailed not just away from Europe, but toward a specific destination. A hidden place known only to the highest initiates. A temple untouched by war, unreachable by land. It's here, in this disappearance, that the story of the missing temple fractures time. A week after the purge began, an unmarked letter reached a monastery in the Alps. Its contents have been preserved only in whispers, but a single sentence remains etched into the stone beneath the abbey's altar. The sanctuary is sealed, may no king find its gate. What sanctuary? There are no known Templar fortresses in that region. No ruins. No foundations. But local folklore speaks of a mountain that sings when the wind is still. A mountain the villagers will not name. One they say is hollow. Could the Templars have fled not just to safety but to fulfillment? To the very temple whose secrets they had guarded for decades? If so, their erasure was not the end, but the final step in a plan centuries in the making. Documents from Vatican inquisitors speak of knights who, even under torture, refused to answer one particular question. A question never recorded, only implied. It was asked in secret, in darkness, without witnesses. And whatever it was met with silence. Not defiance, not fear. Silence, as if the answer was not permitted. As if to speak, it was to break something older than oaths. This silence becomes the thread through which the rest of the legend is woven. The missing temple does not reappear in records after 1307. It becomes a myth within a myth, a ghost hidden inside the machinery of memory. But the signs endure. In 1539, a Spanish explorer named Alonso Navarro claimed to have found a stone chamber deep within the caves of the Sierra de Guara. The walls were carved with symbols he could not decipher. In its center, a dais with a single object, a broken sword entwined with silver vines. Navarro took nothing. He sealed the chamber and never returned. His journal ends with one line: "It is not a place for men." Over the centuries, whispers continued. A 17th century occultist described a cathedral of echo buried beneath a mountain lake. A 19th century monk wrote of the final refuge of the Lost Brotherhood, where the stars burn in reverse. In each story, a common theme: silence, stone, symbols, and absence. What if the purge was never about heresy? What if it was about containment? Not of an idea, but of a space. A sacred space where the rules of the world blur, where time folds, light bends, and memory bleeds into stone. A place never meant to be known, only remembered in myth. That Friday, the 13th, was not just a day of executions. It was a ritual, the final act in a sacred drama, a signal to those who remained, those who fled, that the temple must be forgotten. But like all true myths, it could not die. It simply became silence. And in that silence, the temple still waits. He appears in only a handful of records, and even those are incomplete, redacted, or buried beneath layers of misdirection. A man with no surname, referred to only as the Keeper in Templar correspondence dated decades after the Order's dissolution. His existence is debated, his identity obscured. But across multiple centuries, in texts that should have never crossed paths, the same figure is invoked again and again, a lone custodian who walks in shadow, bearing the burden of a knowledge too dangerous to speak. His earliest mention comes from a letter recovered in the ruins of a Portuguese Templar outpost, dated 1351. Written in cipher, it reads, "The circle remains unbroken. The keeper moves as stone among trees. The temple is not lost. It is kept." Another reference, this one stranger, appears in a 16th century Jesuit diary. The priest, stationed in northern Italy, describes a traveler who arrived during the winter solstice, cloaked, silent, asking no shelter. That night, the monastery's ancient texts were rearranged, margins annotated in unknown glyphs. The traveler vanished by morning, leaving behind a sigil etched into the frost on the window, the Ouroboros coiled around a cross. Who was he? Or more precisely, what was he guarding? Some believe he was a surviving Templar from the inner circle, one of those who escaped the purge and swore to protect the temple alone. Others say he was never part of the order but chosen by it. A vessel, a bearer of what they called the weight of the flame, a poetic reference that scholars have interpreted as either a sacred text, an artifact, or something far more intangible, memory itself. One fragment, found in a manuscript attributed to a mystic seer in 1689, goes further. The flame is thought, unbound by flesh. It devours those unready. Only the keeper walks with it, untouched. The implication? The temple contains not a treasure, but a transmission. A kind of divine resonance, a pulse or language not meant for mortal minds. The keeper's role is not simply to hide it, but to protect others from it. And yet, his presence is not entirely passive. In the 1800s, during the excavation of a collapsed Templar crypt in southern France, a team of historians uncovered a sealed chamber beneath the altar. Within it, no bones, no treasure, but a set of cloaks, boots, and a journal written in multiple hands, spanning over 3 centuries. The final entry was dated 1792 and signed with a single initial, A. The entry read, "I stood at the threshold, heard the voice, saw the stone open like breath. I turned away, not because I feared, but because I understood." Accompanying the journal was a diagram, a spiral leading into a central point marked only with the symbol of the veiled eye. Some believe this was the last known act of the keeper recording the warning, reaffirming the vow. A vow that has passed, silently, from one to another over generations. There are those who claim the keeper still walks among us, not as a myth, not as a ghost, but as flesh. A curator in a forgotten museum who knows too much about architecture. A wanderer in the Andes who speaks dead languages. A figure in old photographs who never seems to age. Of course, to the rational mind, these are fantasies, coincidences, archetypes. But for those who follow the map, who believe in the temple, the keeper is not only real. He is the final barrier between the world and a truth it cannot bear. But barriers, like myths, can erode. And if the keeper falls, what happens then? Does the temple reveal itself? Or does the flame escape? In 2022, a message was posted anonymously on a deep web forum frequented by cryptographers and esoteric historians. It contained no context, only a phrase written in Templar cipher. When the mirror breaks, follow the silence to the hollow star. He will not stand forever. Is it prophecy? A threat? Or a signal? If the keeper still exists, his time may be ending. And what he protects, what he has carried for centuries, may be stirring again. It is not marked on any map. No road leads to it. No name defines it. And yet, those who have sought the truth, historians, wanderers, visionaries, speak of a place that does not appear, but happens. Not a destination, but a moment in space and time when the veil thins and the forgotten breathes again. They call it the temple beyond the world. Sightings are rare, fragmented, and often dismissed. But the patterns are undeniable. In 1937, a British cartographer named Elric Hammond vanished while mapping geological anomalies in the Zagros Mountains. He sent one final telegram before disappearing. Found it. It sings. In 1962, during a military excavation in the Syrian desert, soldiers reportedly encountered an underground chamber lined with stone tiles that emitted a faint hum. The entrance collapsed within hours, and the incident was erased from official records. Only one photo remains, a circular design etched into the wall behind them. A serpent, a flame, and a key without a blade. And in 2009, a satellite scan over an uninhabited region of the Pyrenees recorded a thermal anomaly in the shape of a perfect spiral. Within seconds, the data self-corrupted, not erased, but overwritten with static and a pattern of symbols later identified as ancient Proto-Templar sigils. Coincidence? Fabrication? Or proof that the temple, while hidden, is still active? Eyewitness accounts are often brief, riddled with contradictions. A shepherd who glimpses towers in the mist where none should be. A hiker who finds a stone archway, walks through it, and returns to find the trail changed. A dream shared by multiple people across continents, the same architecture, the same voice, calling them to remember. The veil, it seems, is not permanent. It shifts. And when it lifts, even briefly, the temple reveals itself to the ones it chooses. But why? Some believe the temple is sentient not in the way a mind is sentient, but in the way a flame knows how to burn. It responds to frequencies, to symbols, to memory. It hides not just from eyes, but from intention. You do not find it. It finds you when you are ready, or when the time demands it. And in every account, one theme persists: distortion. Those who've come near the temple speak of light that doesn't behave like light, of sound that continues after silence, of time bending minutes stretched into days, or hours lost in the blink of an eye. One scholar described it as entering a memory that remembers you back. What kind of structure holds this power? Ancient texts refer to it not as a building, but as a threshold, a liminal space between the world we know and something older, a pre-human consciousness etched in geometry and myth. Architectural fragments recovered from suspected Templar ruins support this theory. Stones with impossible angles. Archways built to mirror celestial alignments only visible once every 800 years. Rooms shaped not for utility, but for ritual places designed to resonate with vibration and intention. Inside this temple, according to whispered accounts, there is no altar, no throne, no name, only a chamber. Circular, dark, silent, and at its center, a monolith black as void, humming with a frequency no instrument can register. The ancient symbol of the eye returns here, always hidden, always watching. Scholars disagree on its meaning. Some say it represents divine witness. Others say it is the observer within the part of consciousness that cannot be deceived. Whatever its purpose, it has waited. waded through inquisitions, through wars, through time and forgetting, not to be discovered, but to be remembered. And now, in the modern world, a world of noise and light, of distraction and disbelief, the veil grows thin again. The signs increase. Dreams intensify. Symbols reappear in graffiti, in art, in the idle scribbles of children who have never been taught their meaning. Is the temple calling? Or is the world finally quiet enough to hear? Either way, one truth remains. It was never lost. It was never gone. It was simply waiting beneath the veil, beyond the reach of kings, and behind the silence we fear to enter. And as the veil lifts once more, the temple breathes. Centuries have passed. Empires have risen and crumbled. Faith has shifted, evolved, fractured. Yet the legend of the Templars and the vanished temple refuses to die. It has become a ghost woven into the fabric of culture, haunting everything from ancient texts to modern conspiracy boards. A symbol both feared and revered. A myth that adapts, morphs, survives. In popular culture, the Templars have become immortal. They appear in novels, films, video games. Sometimes heroes, sometimes villains, but always mysterious. Their sigil, the red cross on a white field, is more recognizable today than it was in their own time. But beneath the fiction, fragments of truth remain, and they are hiding in plain sight. In 2010, a high-resolution scan of Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper revealed previously unnoticed geometrical patterns beneath the paint, some of which mirror designs found in Templar chapels. Was this intentional? Coincidence? Or Da Vinci's subtle homage to knowledge once hidden? In 2017, a declassified Vatican document revealed references to a non-canonical sanctum believed to be located beneath the ruins of a Roman outpost sealed by a forgotten rite, unentered for 700 years. In 2024, an independent team of symbologists published a digital reconstruction of Templar commandee locations across Europe. When mapped with precision and connected in a specific order, they formed an enormous sigil, not a religious symbol, but an esoteric diagram known in ancient mystery schools, the mirror of the threshold. The implications are profound. What if the temple was not merely a structure but a network? What if every Templar outpost, every cathedral, every seemingly mundane ruin was a fragment of a larger puzzle? Not a hiding place, but a field of memory matrix encoded into geography, waiting to be reassembled. And the question becomes, by whom? Today, thousands search, some out of curiosity, others obsession. Online communities decode medieval manuscripts, trace ley lines, analyze celestial charts. They speak of the Watchers, the Guardians, the Order Unseen. They claim the temple was a vessel not just of knowledge, but of something more. A message, a warning, a test. A few believe it was not even built by the Templars but discovered by them. An inheritance from a civilization long vanished. One that encoded its truths in stone and light and waited for a lineage of guardians to keep the silence alive. That lineage may not have ended, because the signs haven't stopped. In 2025, a group of hikers in the Alps reported a sudden shift in their surroundings. They entered a fog and emerged into a stone basin they could not find again on satellite imagery. At the center, a metallic pillar with an inscription in a hybrid language no scholar has yet identified. The phrase, once partially decoded, read, "When silence is broken, return to the circle. The flame remembers." It's easy to dismiss such stories, to call them hallucinations, hoaxes, illusions. But myths have never required belief to exist. They move through time like breath through bone, invisible, essential, patient. And sometimes, they awaken. In every generation, there are seekers. Those who feel the pull of forgotten places. Who look at ruins and see not death, but memory. Who read old texts not as superstition, but as echoes of something truer than science can measure. To them, the temple is not a metaphor. It is a promise, a key, a summons. Perhaps that's why you're still here listening, watching, wondering. Because somewhere, deep down, you already know. The legend is not about stone. It's about remembering what was buried in you long ago. A truth older than history. A silence deeper than time. And a temple that has always been waiting. There are stories we inherit passed down like relics, shaped by centuries, diluted through repetition. And then, there are stories that inherit us. Stories that wait. The tale of the Templars and the missing temple is not just a historical curiosity or a relic of medieval myth. It is something else, a living current beneath the surface of time, flowing in silence, reaching those attuned to its pull. You've followed the echoes this far, not by accident. For the sacred that cannot be commodified, for the mystery that cannot be explained, only experienced, and the temple that vanishing sanctum remains the ultimate symbol of that quest. Whether buried beneath stone or encoded in myth, it endures, not because it is real in the way cities are real, but because it is truer than real. It represents the threshold between what we know and what we once knew, between logic and longing, between the world as it is and the world as it was meant to be. It reminds us that something precious has been lost not just in history, but in ourselves. But the temple does not fade. It waits in the gap between heartbeats, in dreams we can't explain, in symbols we draw without knowing why. And what you've seen reflected tonight, the forgotten guardians, the coded prophecies, the veiled sanctum, is not just legend. It is legacy. Write in the comments, because your suggestion could be the next video here on Epic Legends. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join our community of legends. Remember, every legend was once real.